Imagine you are holding a long sandwich. Instead of spreading butter uniformly throughout, you put all the butter exactly at the center. On both sides, you keep only bread and vegetables. Sounds strange? But this is exactly what we do in the nominal T method of medium transmission lines. Today, we are going to deeply understand the nominal T method. Not just the circuit, not just the Phasor diagram, but every assumption, every current, every voltage relationship, in a way that you can visualize it in your mind. In this method, the entire line capacitance is assumed to be concentrated at the midpoint of the transmission line, and the total line resistance and total inductive reactance are divided equally, half placed on one side of the midpoint and half placed on the other side. So effectively, the line looks like this. From the sending end, you first encounter half resistance and half inductive reactance. Then at the center, you encounter the entire shunt capacitance. After that, again half resistance and half inductive reactance before reaching the receiving end. Because the capacitance is placed at the center, the full charging current flows over half of the line only. Now tell me in the comments, why do you think we don't use this model for short transmission lines? Think about the physical reason behind it. Alright, let us define everything very clearly here. We're considering just one phase of a three-phase transmission line, and since the system is balanced, we can actually analyze things per phase. So, IR is the load current per phase, XL is the total inductive reactance per phase, R is the total resistance per phase, C is the capacitance per phase, VS is the sending end voltage per phase, VR is the receiving end voltage per phase, and finally, V1 is the voltage across the capacitor. The receiving end power factor angle is phi R. And since the load is lagging, the load current lags the receiving end voltage by phi R. Now we take the receiving end voltage VR as our reference phasor. That means VR equals VR plus J0. The load current IR can be written as IR equals magnitude of IR multiplied by cos phi R minus J sine phi R. So IR equals IR times cos phi R minus JIR sine phi R. Are you comfortable converting rectangular to polar and polar to rectangular? Tell me in the comments which form you prefer for calculations. Alright, so now imagine you are constructing the phasor diagram in your mind. We start with VR, which is drawn horizontally. Since the load is lagging, IR will be drawn below VR, making an angle phi R. Now we move backward through the line from receiving end to midpoint. Across the second half of the line, we have R by 2 and XL by 2. The voltage drop across resistance is IR multiplied by R by 2. This drop is in phase with IR. The voltage drop across inductive reactance is IR multiplied by XL by 2. This drop leads IR by 90 degrees. So if you add IR times R by 2 vectorially to VR and then add IR times XL by 2 in quadrature, you reach the midpoint voltage V1. So we can say V1 equals VR plus IR multiplied by Z divided by 2. And Z divided by 2 equals R by 2 plus JXL by 2. So V1 equals VR plus IR multiplied by R by 2 plus JXL by 2. Now pause and think. What happens to V1 if the line is purely resistive? What if it is purely inductive? Comment your thoughts. At the midpoint sits the capacitor C. The voltage across it is V1. The capacitive current IC equals J omega C multiplied by V1, or IC equals J2 pi FC multiplied by V1. Since multiplication by J means a rotation of 90 degrees anticlockwise, IC leads V1 by 90 degrees. Now, the sending end current IS equals IR plus IC, because the capacitor current adds to the load current at the midpoint. Now here is an interesting question for you. Is the sending end current always greater than the receiving end current in the nominal T model? Or can it ever be smaller? Think carefully before answering. From the midpoint to the sending end, again we have R by 2 and XL by 2. But now the current flowing is IS. So the voltage drop across this half is IS multiplied by R by 2 in phase with IS, and IS multiplied by XL by 2, leading IS by 90 degrees. Therefore, Vs equals V1 plus Is multiplied by Z divided by 2, or Vs equals V1 plus Is multiplied by R by 2 plus JXL by 2. If you look at the Phasor diagram on the screen, you will see how the vectors build step by step until finally, the last vector gives us the sending end voltage Vs. That final vector represents the total effect of resistance, inductance, and capacitance. Now let us consider a practical example. A three-phase, 50 Hz overhead transmission line, 100 km long, has the following constants. Resistance per kilometer per phase equals 0.1 ohm. Inductive reactance per kilometer per phase equals 0.2 ohm. Capacitive susceptance per kilometer per phase equals 0.04 into 10 to the power minus 4 Siemens. The line supplies a balanced load of 10,000 kilovolt ampere at 66 kilovolt with power factor 0.8 lagging. Using the nominal T method, determine the sending end current, the sending end voltage, the sending end power factor, and the transmission efficiency. I am not solving it here. I want you to solve it completely and write your final answers in the comments. Write clearly the value of sending end current, sending end voltage line to line, and sending end power factor. Let's see who gets it correct first. The nominal T method is essentially a midpoint capacitance model. It assumes that capacitance is lumped at the center and resistance and inductance are equally divided. It provides better accuracy than the short line model for medium transmission lines, especially when line charging current is significant. Understanding the physical meaning behind each Phasor addition is more important than memorizing formulas. If this explanation made the nominal T method crystal clear in your mind, then press the like button because it directly helps this video reach more electrical engineering students. Share it with your friends who struggle with transmission line modeling. Subscribe to Electrology if you want deep conceptual power system content explained in a very practical way. And if you really want to support this channel so that I can continue making detailed power system lectures like this, consider pressing the thanks button below the video or joining the channel using the join button. Your support genuinely helps in upgrading equipment, investing time, and creating more high-quality technical content for you. Now, go and solve the numerical problem. I am waiting for your answers in the comments.